the class in memory of Jared Orchen, and we were going to start today in the top of the page. If you remember last class, we were talking about Onkelos the convert. Onkelos converted to Judaism. That the Talmud brings another examples of another few famous people who converted to Judaism, or the children converted to Judaism. Then start from the top of the page. It's a piece down. Atone taught in the Braisa.
Naaman was a resident convert.
Who is Naaman?
It was the general that Elisha dipped into the Jordan River.
Yeah, we know the story, right? Elisha the prophet was a general from Syria, from Damascus, from the country of Aram. Aram was the strongest army in the Middle East, like Iran today probably. And the general had leprosy, and he captured a Jewish girl. She was his maidservant, and she told Mrs. Naaman, tell your husband that there is prophets by the Jewish people. Let them go to the prophet. The prophet can cure him. He asked permission from his king. The king told him go, and he gave him presents for the prophet to cure him. And he came to the prophet, and the prophet didn't even want to see him because he has leprosy. He told him, go to the water of Jordan, the Jordan water, wash yourself, immerse in the water of the Jordan 7 times. I think it's the Jordan water, yeah?
Yeah.
And then come out, then you'll be cured. Naaman, the glorified general of the Middle East, the prophet doesn't even want to see him. He was very insulted. He said, I need Mark, can you move a little bit? And that he told him, you think he was insulted? He said, I in the water of Jordan, the Euphrates water are better. We have plenty of water. But his servant who came with him told him, just do it. What do you care? You're already here. You already went all this way. Do it. He did it. He went and immersed in the water, and his skin became pure like a baby. It was cured. Then he came back to Naaman, and he told Naaman, he came back to Elisha. This time Elisha accepted him and told them, and he said to Elisha, now I believe only in the God of the Jewish people. And he told them, and if I go, I want to ask forgiveness, because if I'll go with my master to the idol worshipping house in Syria, don't count it as a sin, because I do it because I have no choice, but really I only believe in God. He says he was a resident convert. A resident convert means somebody who joins the Jewish people, let's say in the land of Israel, he accepts the belief in God. He doesn't become a complete convert. He doesn't observe all 613 mitzvahs, commandment, but he will not believe in other idols, other religions. He believes there is one God. That's a resident convert. Then he's allowed to live in Israel, because idol worshippers cannot live in Israel, the land of Israel.
Would that be a Noahide, or would that be something different?
It's similar to a Noahide, yes. I think that's the same thing. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure, but I think it's the same thing. That he says Naaman was a resident convert. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. He accepting upon himself that he believes in one God and he doesn't believe in any idols. That's a Noahide law. Yeah. Now he brings another example.
Nebuzaradan was a righteous convert.
Nebuzaradan, that's a story in the Talmud that tells that Nebuzaradan came and he wanted to destroy he tried to destroy the Jewish temple, and he killed many Jews, and then he realized what he did, and he ran away and he converted to Judaism. A righteous convert means somebody who converted completely. Came a Jew, goes to Shul. Go ahead.
Descendants of Haman taught Torah in Bnei Brak.
Descendants of Haman were teaching Torah in Bnei Brak. What does this mean? What lies behind this amazing statement? Who was Haman? A descendant of whom?
Amalek.
Huh? That Amalek. So you read in the Torah, it's written Amalek, you have to destroy and not to leave anything. And every time when people read it in the Torah, they get all upset and worked up. How dare the Jewish people behave so? It's not so simple. If an Amalekite, descendants of Amalekite, let's say we would know, first of all, we don't know he's an Amalekite today. But the children of the descendants of Haman, we know that they are from Amalekites. They converted and they were accepted. You can be Jewish. Don't kill, just opposite. Be my guest. And come and join the Jewish people, and we love you. That's another example. Then the Talmud continues.
Well, I have a question, just
Yeah.
because, I mean, that's kind of like, it seems like such a serious concept that these children were descendants, but you hear about Moab and Amnon that they can't marry into the Jewish families.
First of all, marrying into the Jewish families and converting is two separate things. They can convert, they cannot necessarily marry. Let's say even in biblical time. For sure, today everybody can marry anybody. I mean, if he converts. But still, I mean, Ruth could convert. The problem of Ruth wasn't that she couldn't convert. The question was if she can marry Boaz or not. Converting you could, sure. Okay, the next one.
Descendants of Sisera taught children in Jerusalem.
Whoa, who is Sisera?
It's a general.
Right, a general who was fighting the Jewish people, and then he himself was killed by Yael. Right, we learned about him, I think, last week. And his descendants taught Torah in Jerusalem. The ultimate victory of the Jewish people is not, God forbid, to hurt anybody, to kill. The ultimate victory is that when they join us, your own children join us. There was a Hasidic story about when the first Chabad Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, lived 250 years. He started the Chabad movement. And there were strong opponents, religious Jews who were strong against the Hasidic movement. It came so bad that was a rabbi of Pinsk. His name was Avigdor. Avigdor was, he reported on the Alter Rebbe to the government. He reported that he tries to lead a revolution against the Tsar. He wants to be a king of the Jews. He's trying to revolution. The Tsar was a paranoid for excellence. He heard the word revolution, rebellion, that's it. He didn't need much. They arrested the Alter Rebbe, and it was a whole thing. He was in jail for 53 days in St. Petersburg, interrogations and this. He came out kosher, then he was again in jail, I think a year later or 2 years later, whatever. This Avigdor lost his job, became a drunk. But the interesting story about it is, Avigdor's sons, became Chassidim. And when they used to be called up to the Torah, they asked to be called up by the name of their father-in-law, not by the name of the father. They don't want to have a relationship with their own father. But what does it shows you? The grandchildren of Amen don't teach Torah in Bnei Brak. The grandchildren of Sisera teach Torah in Jerusalem.
It's like messianic. Yeah.
It means that's the goal. That's one more example.
Descendants of Sancheriv taught Torah in public.
Sancheriv, another famous personality in Jewish history. Sancheriv came and he wanted to destroy Jerusalem on Erev Pesach. It was how many years before the destruction of the first temple?
Well, secular chronology or
Whatever.
About 150.
100 years, yeah. Then he wanted to destroy the temple and the whole city. And it was a huge miracle, and it was a plague, and most of his soldiers died, and he ran away, and his own sons killed them. Sancheriv's grandchildren taught Torah to the Jewish people. And the Gemara says who they are. The Gemara continue.
Gemara identifies these descendants of Sancheriv. Who were they? Shemaiah and Avtalion.
Shemaiah and Avtalion. You learn Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our father. You read about, there was a time in Jewish history, the last 100 years of the destruction, before destruction of the second temple, they were even more than 100 years. Yeah, probably a little before that, 150 years. The leaders were two leaders, double leaders, like two people led the Jewish people. One of the sets of the Zugot, it's called, was Shemaiah and Avtalion. Both of them were converts, from Roman converts. And they were the leaders of the Jewish people. It means a convert became the leader of the Jewish people, of everybody. That means, first of all, it means a lot of converts converted to Judaism at that time, a lot. And number two, they were so great. Some historians say that the Jewish people purposely put converts on the leadership because they would be easier for them to deal with the government, with the Roman leadership, because it's one of them, so to speak. But whatever it is, Shemaiah and Avtalion, the Talmud says, were the descendants of Sancheriv. Many years later, but descendants from the same family. Then we see that the ultimate goal is that the whole world should believe in God. That's the ultimate goal. They don't have to be necessarily Jewish. They should all drop any other things and believe in one God and be honest and live up to the 10 Commandments, to the 7 Noachite laws. That's what is expected. Now we're going to continue the story. If you remember in the beginning of the first class, we said because of three stories happened that led to destruction, to big destructions. One story was about Kamse and Bar Kamse led to destruction of the second temple. Here comes the second story. Go ahead.
Rabbi Yochanan enumerated 3 incidents in which reckless action led to disaster. Having related the first incident, the Gemara now relates the second one. As a result of the incident involving a rooster and a hen, the province of Har HaMelech was destroyed.
Where is Har HaMelech? I saw explanations here, there. It was a big place, according to the Talmud.
The mountainous region in Judah.
Yeah, I saw it, but what does this mean exactly? I don't know. A region in Judah, that's for sure. Because of an hen and a rooster, a big place was destroyed of many, many people. What happened?
In that province, they had a custom that when they took a groom and bride out to their wedding, they would bring a rooster and a hen out in front of them.
The rooster and hen was marching before the couple.
As if to say to them, be fruitful and multiply like hens. One day, a band of Romans was passing by as a ceremony was taking place, and they took the rooster and hen from the people.
They didn't know what is going on. They saw one and Esther, they were the kings of the land. They took it away, finished.
The people fell upon the Romans and smote them. The Romans reported to Caesar, the Jews have rebelled against you. Caesar came upon the Jews of Har HaMelech in battle.
It's very simple. The company went to the wedding, got angry, beat the Romans up. The Romans reported there is a rebellion against the Roman Emperor. This guy doesn't make too many investigations, doesn't take any risks, go and send the army. Before long, there's a world war.
Among the Jews, there was a certain man from the south of the country who would jump on a mill and slaughter the Roman soldiers.
Some very, very strong person was killing the Roman soldiers. Somebody unbelievably strong, by himself. Okay.
Caesar took his crown and put it on the ground. He said in prayer, Master the entire world, if it please you, do not deliver that man, Caesar, him or his kingdom, into the hands of a single man.
Basically, the Roman Caesar understood too that his power comes from God. That he turns to God, he took off his crown, put it on the ground, and he says, God, don't do this. Don't make the whole country to be delivered in the hand of one man. It's an insult for Rome to be destroyed by one guy, to be to lose the war by one strong person.
Interesting statement in the Talmud, because all the Caesars historically viewed themselves as gods.
But they knew the truth. As we said in one of the classes, there is no atheist in the foxhole. I mean, deep down they knew. Go ahead.
Slavner's mouth then brought his downfall, for he said,
The guy, the Southern Jew, the Caesar's prayers wouldn't help, but the Jew himself got himself in trouble. What he said?
Is it not you, O God, who has forsaken us? Do not go forth, O God, with our legions.
There is a verse in the book of Psalms that says this word. Is it not you, O God, who have forsaken us? Do not go forth, O God, with our legion. Basically, he took this verse and he said to God, God, don't help us. Don't do us any favors. That's what he was so strong and so full of himself and thought that he is the one with success that he thought he doesn't need God anymore. There's a similar story about the second temple too.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't Bar Kokhba basically say the same thing?
Yeah, Bar Kokhba said the same thing. Exactly. Bar Kokhba in the beginning was very successful to a point that Rabbi Akiva thought that he's the Messiah. But later he got himself, power corrupts. You think you're really the boss of the world. And the moment he started to say, I don't need God, as long somebody, an old man, the story goes, told him, may God help you. Says, you don't need his help as long as he doesn't hurt us. That was the beginning of the end. When you start to talk like this, it's over. The same thing happened here. Okay. The southern, go ahead, continue.
The southern, relying on his own power, said that he did not require Hashem's assistance. The Gemara asks, but David also said this. This is the verse from the book of Psalms, which was written by King David.
Isn't this a quote from King David? Then why are you getting angry with the southern guy who said it? David said it. The Talmud answers, the Gemara answers.
David expressed it as a question. David was wondering why Hashem did not come to the aid of the army. The southerner, however, expressed it as a request that Hashem not provide his assistance.
David was complaining to God, why Hashem you don't come to help us? We beg you to come. This guy took the verse and said that Hashem, we don't need any favors. He stated a fact. That was his problem. The moment he says he does need God's help, you know what happens when you tell Hashem you don't need God's help? He just, no, he just doesn't give you his help. No problem. Sure. You don't need my help. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. I'm not even going to hurt you. Go ahead. The Talmud brings us, the Rashi brings an example from the Bible. The Jewish people left Egypt. Who were the first people to attack them? Amalekite. Why they attacked them? Why they attacked the Jewish people? Because the Jewish people said, it's written when they started going to the desert, they said, Ayesh Hashem bikirbeinu. They wonder if God is among them. God is giving them, making all the miracles, splitting the sea, the 10 plagues, the this. You wonder if Hashem is among you? God said, okay, I'm not. And Rashi brings an example. Rashi says it's a father who carries his son on his shoulders in the desert, in a scary place or a forest. And then, while the father schleps him on his shoulders, another person passes by. The boy who sits on his father's shoulders is asking the other guy, you saw my father? What the father did, the father took him off. He says, okay, you didn't see, you don't need me, right? Fine, you're on your own. He left. All the dogs came to attack him. Said, Father. Said, you can do it yourself, right? What do you want from me? The same thing happened in the desert. The Jewish people say, is there God among us? God says, I'll show you exactly how it looks and I'm not among you. God doesn't hurt you. He just walks away. You walk away, everybody jumps. The same thing happened here. It wasn't a punishment of God. It was a consequence. You say you don't need God, fine. You disconnect yourself. God will not disconnect any human being from Him. But sometimes we disconnect ourselves from God. That's a problem. And that's what happened here. The Gemara continues
with the narrative. The southerner went into the privy. A snake came and disemboweled him, and he died. Caesar said, since a miracle occurred for me, I will leave the Jews alone this time.
Okay, Caesar said, such a miracle happened, we got red. Hashem took away from me this strong man. I'll let the Jews, give them one more chance. He was about to leave. Okay.
He left them and went on his way. The Jews leaped with joy. They ate and they drank. They lit so many candles that the design on a signet ring was visible a mile away. Caesar said, the Jews are celebrating over me, as if they had defeated me.
Aha! See what happened? He decided to leave them. That the Jews celebrated. He took it, he translated as the Jews celebrating as a victory. Could be the Jews only celebrated because God saved them, not necessarily because they were victorious. But whatever happened, that's how he translated it. Go ahead.
He attacked them again. Ravasi said, 300,000 sword-wielding soldiers went up to Hamelech, and they massacred the people for 3 days and 3 nights. But on the other side of the mountain, the celebration and dancing continued, and those living on one side of the mountain did not know the circumstances of those on the other side.
Well, it was a terrible thing. These people celebrated on this side, didn't know what's going on the other side. What is this reminding you? The Titanic. Yeah. And the music was playing and the sea and the boat was sinking. The same thing in Israel. This guy didn't know what's going on the other side. That's what kind of a balagan it was there. That's the second story. All of this happened from what? From a rooster and an hen. That people didn't, they took from a because of reckless behavior. If people would be a little more responsible, they would save yourself all of this. Sorrows. That's the second story from the
Do you
three
know what it
stories.
reminds me of? It's when, who was in the woods and, you know, the city was being robbed and he had to extinguish the lamp and the rooster. And
Oh, you're talking about
Rabbi
Rabbi
Akiva. He had a
Akiva.
goat and
Rabbi
a-
Akiva, that's a sort of
Akiva.
different story.
A little
Right?
different, yeah.
A little different?
A little different. Yeah, that's the second story. Now the Gemara
discusses another town that was laid waste by the Romans.
there is another town in Egypt that was laid waste by the Romans, full of Jews that the Romans destroyed.
Rav Manyami ban
Chelkaya and Rav Chelkia Batuvia and Ravune Barchie were sitting together. I saved you the whole thing. They said,
They said, if anyone has heard something about
the
residents of
Kfar Sachnaya in Egypt.
in Egypt,
This is the
let
Kfar, this is the village that was destroyed by the Romans completely, full of Jews. Let them speak. Tell me, basically the rabbis wanted to know what happened there, why the city was destroyed.
There was an incident in which a man and his betrothed wife from that town was captured by idolaters, and their captors wed them. The wife
That one of them told a story. There is a story about two kids who were engaged to each other. Not only engaged, you give the ring. In biblical time, even in Talmudic times, you know, today in the chuppah we do everything. It's one package deal. It's one stop. In the olden days, what today we call engagement used to be the groom gives a ring to the bride. She's betrothed to him. Not an engagement ring, the real ring. Actually, in Chabad, we don't give an engagement ring because it could create halachic problems. If you break off your engagement after the ring, it creates a... Because a person can marry his wife in a few ways. One of them is by giving her money or worth of money. A ring is worth of money. Then you give the ring and the finger, that's like a way of, that's a marriage. Then used to be this part separately. And 6 months later, or a year later, was the chuppah. The chuppah means coming in the same house, writing the ketubah and getting married. Here is a story about a guy who gave a ring to his wife. Again, not an engagement ring, but a kiddushin. Kiddushin is a betrothal. It's a marriage, but they actually didn't consummate the marriage. They're still living in two separate places, but they are married to each other. In essence, if they want to break off the relationship, they have to write a get. They are married by halachic law. They were engaged. They were betrothed to each other, and they were captured by the Romans. And the Romans decided to marry them off to each other. They forced them. They were bought slaves, basically, bought captives. And what happened?
I ask you not to touch me, for
The
I,
wife said to her husband, go ahead, I'm sorry, I asked you,
not to touch me, for I do not have a kisuba from you. And
right? The halacha is then to live together, a couple must have a ketubah.
it says kisuba,
Ketubah is it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Ketubah.
and he did
Now,
not.
one second. The ketubah is, and if you don't have a ketubah, I want to hear a story. There was once, remember that when it was in New Orleans, was the big flood. What is it called? Katrina. And the Chabad rabbi, his wife spoke at the convention a month later. She says, my husband came in and said, we have to leave now. I said, what do you take? You have to leave now. We have 5 minutes. Now, Albon. All crowd is sitting there, 2,000 women, Chabad Rebbetzins. He says, you have to take the ketubah. The whole place is, nobody was thinking about it. By Jewish law, if your ketubah disappears, you have to write a new ketubah. You cannot live one day with your wife without a ketubah. It doesn't have to be the ketubah has to be with you. You don't have to take it every time you travel, but the ketubah has to exist. Then he said, my husband took that film, I took the ketubah, and we left.
So it's like a vehicle title.
A little more than that. Why is it? It's a matter of opinion, boy. That's good.
Not like a vehicle. The bills keep coming.
By the vehicle too. then the ketubah, why is the ketubah is a document of protection to the Jewish woman. The ketubah says that the ketubah doesn't have to be signed by the bride. It has to be, and not even by the groom. In the ketubah, it's written that the groom takes upon himself to support his wife. And what will be if they get divorced? What will give him? And what will be if he dies? What is their benefits? And basically, if she divorces, he has to give her money. It's a protection for the wife. The ketubah is a document that was created by the rabbis 2,000 years ago, much before women's leave and everything about protection women was started, maybe 100 years ago. And that's so strict that without a ketubah, you cannot live together. There is many times stories happen constantly. A couple comes to the wedding, there's such a balagan, they look for the ketubah, they cannot find it. No ketubah. They have to go to the rabbi the same night to write another ketubah. They cannot go home. They cannot walk into the same house. That if they find out that the mother-in-law that this took the ketubah, fine. But if they don't know where the ketubah is, they have to write a new ketubah.
There's no wedding?
The wedding is a wedding, just have to write another ketubah. That's it. There's a special ketubah for if it's called a ketubah that was lost. It's a special ketubah. It's a little different version.
Do you have to have two witnesses on again?
Yeah, sure. Then here, what happened there? They engaged with they gave him the ring, but there was no ketubah. That she told them, "Don't touch me because we don't have a ketubah." It's a rabbinic law, not a biblical law. Go ahead.
When he died,
Well,
and he did not touch her until the day of his death.
He didn't touch her until the day he died. They lived together and he didn't touch her. That kind of people were in Egypt, in this little village of Sachnaya. The Talmud brings an example from a type of a couple. What type of people were there? Go ahead.
When he died, she told those assembled, eulogize this man who vanquished his desire in a trial that was more severe than even that of Joseph.
Okay, she said, what's the eulogy? How you should eulogize this man? More is higher than Joseph. We all know the story of Joseph, that Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him and he ran away. This lady point out in this story, why is her husband greater than Joseph? Why?
Did that every night.
Exactly. Go ahead, continue.
For in the trial of Joseph, it was only once that he was required to overcome temptation. Whereas this man overcame temptation every single day.
Joseph was once, like you said. He lived with his wife every day and he didn't touch her. Number 2.
Furthermore, Joseph and the woman who tempted him were not together in the bed, whereas this man and the woman who tempted him were together in one bed.
They were living together. Joseph ran away. This guy couldn't run away anywhere.
Poor guy.
And
Furthermore, Joseph was tempted by a woman who was not his wife, whereas this man was tempted by a woman who was his wife.
That's how great the people of Sachnaya were. That's where the story ends. Okay, now go to the next story.
Why didn't they get a ketubah?
Obviously, there was nowhere to
they-
get a ketubah. They were prisoners of war. They were captives. They were
This
slaves.
is after their
Like they were slaves. They couldn't do it. Obviously, if you could get a ketubah, believe me, you would get a ketubah. They couldn't.
Another sage started to speak, and he said, in that town there was an incident in which the price of 40 modios of grain stood at a dinar. And then the rate dropped by 1 modia, that is, a dinar purchased only 39 modios of grain. They searched for the cause of this inflation, and they discovered that a father and his son had cohabited with a betrothed Na'ara on Yom Kippur. They brought them to the court and stoned them, and the rate of the price of grain returned to its original position.
Let's continue the next story.
Another sage started to speak, and he said, there was an incident in which a man from this city wanted to divorce his wife, but her ketubah payment was great. What did he do? He went and invited his friends. He fed them.
You see, in the olden days, in the Ashkenazi ktubas, it's an official price. 200 zuz, I think. It's a certain amount of money, and that's it. Everybody is equal. It's a standard price. I think that even today, the Sephardic Jews, some of them have a custom to write how much they promise. What will be if you... I remember as a young child, my uncle was getting married, and the same night the rabbi of the town in Bnei Brak was making officiating 2 weddings. And we were going to the other wedding to pick him up because the chuppah was supposed to be earlier there, and then come and pick him to the chuppah. When I come there, the chuppah is not there, not yet. Why? It was a Sephardic chuppah, and the family was fighting how much to write in the ketubah. The brothers of the bride says, we are not going to the chuppah until you write a bigger number.
Wow.
And the rabbi there said, he had a short temper. He says, guys, and when you finish fighting, I'll come back. I'll go to this chuppah, I'll finish there and I'll come back. Maybe by then you'll be done. I remember the story, I was maybe 7 years old, but I remember just like today, how the soul, he was sitting in the car and getting upset about the soul, but it goes by the price. And this guy promised in the ketubah a huge amount of money. He wants to divorce his wife, he cannot afford it. Like many people today cannot afford to get divorced, and that's why they stick together. That's also not such a bad motivator.
Is the concept of the get ever introduced in the ketubah?
No, it's written if he will divorce her, what will be.
Oh, but not a promise to like grant a divorce. Should she want a divorce?
That's a different law.
Oh, okay.
Everybody can get divorced. If she wants or he wants, nobody can force anybody to live together.
Okay.
Both of them has to want to get divorced. That's the bottom line.
Okay. I was just thinking of the issue of the aguna. That's it.
Aguna is a guy who runs away and doesn't want to give his wife a get, yeah.
So is there a promise in a ketubah that,
The guy doesn't live up to Jewish law, he runs away.
Yeah.
The rabbis tell him to give a get, he runs away. What are you going to do with him? It's not a guy who listens to what promise is.
Yeah.
But the wife suffers.
And he suffer, yeah, both of them suffer. And if the wife doesn't want to take the get, the husband suffers too, my friend. If she doesn't want to accept the get, he cannot do anything. He's stuck. He cannot get divorced if she doesn't want to get divorced. That's the bottom line. Okay, then what happened? What he decided? He came up with an idea. What is he going to do? Go ahead, give him to him.
Where do we leave off? Bottom of the first column. He fed
What
them.
did he do?
Yes.
He went and invited his friends. He fed them, gave them to drink, intoxicated them, and laid them together with his wife on one bed. Then he bought the white of an egg and put it between them.
Yeah. Achocha, go ahead. He put his wife together with other guys, they got all drunk, and he put some egg there. And then what he did, he positioned the witnesses.
He positioned witnesses to see them, and he went to court claiming in court that his wife had committed adultery. And therefore, he did not have to pay her.
Ketubah, he doesn't have to pay. She committed adultery, she lost her ketubah. Now she deserves to get divorced. A perfect situation. Great. Was an old man there.
There was an elderly sage there, one of the students of Shammai the elder. And
Baba Ben Buta was his name. One of the disciples of Shammai, the famous Ilan Shammai, one of the disciples of Shammai was Baba Ben Buta. He said to them,
I received the following lesson from Shammai the elder. The white of an egg contracts from exposure to fire, but semen flows away from the fire.
Basically, there is a way to check it. You put it by the fire and you see what happened to it, and you know if it's an egg or something else. Okay, they examined
the questionable substance by performing this test, and they discovered that it was egg white, in accordance with the words of Baba Ben Buta.
Baba Ben Buta was right. He says they made a simple test with fire and discovered it just egg. It became an eggplant. I don't know what.
They brought the man to court and flogged him.
They flogged him in the Beit Din, this guy, yeah?
And collected her.
Tuba from him. They made him pay until the last penny, this guy who tries to get his wife in trouble.
And that's why you had the rooster and the hen.
Now, a similar story happened. You see, we bring you the first example with Joseph. You know, there is a story there is something it's called, there is a translation from Onkelos to the Bible in Aramaic, and there is a translation from Yonatan ben Uzziel. It's called the Jerusalem translation to Aramaic. Now the translations are not just a translation, they are kind of a commentary. The Jerusalem translation has more details. We see in the story of Joseph, when it was a famine, right? The people in Egypt gave their land as an exchange for themselves, for food. When they didn't have land, what they did?
They became slaves.
They became slaves. Everybody became slave. Or there was one group who was spoiled.
The priest.
The priest did not become slave. Joseph gave the priest a portion from the government and finished. They don't have to sell the land, they don't have to sell anything. The religious leaders, so to speak, the clergy, got foot on the government without anything. Why the clergy in Egypt got such a good treatment from Joseph?
Because they treated the Levites in a similar way, didn't they?
He treated the Levite, that was later, that the Levite did not suffer in Egypt.
Right, yeah.
That was much before.
You're right.
Why Joseph treated the priest so nicely? And then the Targum, the translation of Yonatan ben Uzziel says that when Potiphar's wife, and she accused Joseph of trying to rape her, right? What she did, she took an egg, spread on she had his clothing in his hand, right? She spread eggs and she told her husband, here it is, here's the proof. Her husband, Potiphar, was the chief executioner. He was a guy, that was his job, to kill people. That was what he was famous for. That's a Joseph was not killed the right way. Why? That's a strange story. A slave, a Hebrew, that's first problem. A slave in Egypt, of the chief executioner, tries to rape the missus of the strongest man in Egypt. He would be killed in a second. Any slave was killed in a second in Egypt. Life was worthless in Egypt. Why was Joseph not killed? This master loved Joseph. His wife came and told him the story. He thought maybe his wife is lying, but he didn't know what to do. He didn't want to kill Joseph because he knew there is a special guy. Joseph was an unusual human being. He knew it. He felt it. He went to the priest. He says, my wife comes with this story. I don't know what to do. They told him, we have a way to check this. You're not the first one, boy. They put fire. It's an egg. Then he knew she's lying, but he had to save face, that he put him in jail. Because Joseph was not killed, a slave in Egypt, trying to rape a master. I mean, in America 150 years ago, he wouldn't survive more than 5 minutes.
Because everything he did was blessed.
You're right. You're right. But what I mean to say is, the same story that the Talmud tells here, the same story is told by this translation to the Bible about Joseph. That's why the priest saved his life. That's why many years later, when Joseph was in power, he treated the priest nicely and he gave them the food, their portion, without being a slave or selling themselves. Later, it went back. That's why the tribe of the Levites were never slaves in Egypt, because Joseph established that the clergy are not slaves. That what you do to others doing to you, it's a full cycle. The priest saved Joseph, that eventually Joseph saved them. Because as Joseph saved them, they saved the Levites, that's all. Therefore, Moses and Aaron were not slaves because they were from the tribe of the Levites. Okay, having established...
The residents of some...
No, you're on the second page. Where are you?
He's there. That's right.
Having established... Oh, I'm sorry. Sachnaya, yeah. Go ahead.
If the residents of Sachnaya were righteous, the Gemara seeks to know why they were punished.
Then the Gemara says, why was Sachnaya destroyed? They were such righteous people.
Abaya asked Rabbi Yosef, But since they were so righteous, why were they punished? Rabbi Yosef answered him, because they did not mourn the destruction of Jerusalem, as it is written, glad in Jerusalem and rejoice with her, all those who love her. Be elated with her, all those who mourn for her.
You hear? This is a very serious answer. They were righteous people, but they were very comfortable. They never never mourned Jerusalem. They never missed Jerusalem. They never looked forward to go back to Jerusalem. That's why they were destroyed. It means to say a Jew anywhere else who is not living in Jerusalem or in Israel, as you know, you daven to the east. Why to the east? Because you think about Jerusalem. In the prayer, in the Amidah service, everything is about Jerusalem. In the grace after meal, again Jerusalem. Everywhere we stand, the 3 weeks, it's all about the mourning for the destruction of the temple. Now Tisha B'Av is coming up. It's about the destruction of the everyone will mourn the destruction of Jerusalem, and while we rejoice when Jerusalem will be rebuilt. And that's what the Talmud really wants to conclude, this, bringing this point back home. Then we always have to think there is a tradition in many Jewish homes in Israel, especially many people do it, that they leave one piece of, we spoke about it last time, that by the entrance to the house, you leave one piece that's not complete as a way to remember the destruction of Jerusalem. Not painted. Let's say in front of the house, one piece of the wall is, if it's wallpaper, it's not wallpapered. If it's paint, if you paint it, you'll see the bricks, or you see whatever the wall is made of. A way of remembering that my life is not complete as long as that. Why we break the cup under the chuppah? To remember Jerusalem. There's many traditions we do to remember Jerusalem, because this is the message. Okay, now the Gemara comes to the third story.
The Gemara recounts the third incident mentioned by Rabbi Yochanan in which reckless action led to disaster.
Okay.
As a result of the incident involving the side of a carriage, Bethar was destroyed.
Beitar was a city with thousands and thousands of Jews. Go ahead.
In Beitar, they had a custom that when a baby boy was born, they planted a cedar tree. And when a baby girl was born, they planted a pine tree.
Is a pine tree more feminine than a cedar tree? That's the idea? Softer? Okay. Cedar trees are more the trees. Go ahead.
When a boy and a girl wed, the people would cut down their trees and make the wedding canopy out of the wood.
What a wonderful tradition. I can see in America people adopting it every day. You plant around 3 days. But the problem is we move houses so fast that we will have to reclaim the tree. It might get complicated. I can see how somebody is opening a business. He planted a tree, a cedar tree and a pine tree. He has his own garden. You pay rent every year. And when by the wedding, the cut of the trees, and somebody can really open a big business from it. In America, this can go. And what's your present? I bought a tree for the baby. I'm paying for the tree. And the godfather, well, I can see that could be unbelievable. I'm surprised nobody started yet. Go ahead.
Rabbi, some people do have that tradition.
Yes.
When a baby is born, like if you're a farmer or something, like that, they plant a tree then it grows with them.
Yeah, but they don't cut it off at the chuppah.
No, they don't cut it, but
No,
they do have that tradition of
here is
planting
like a full cycle. That's interesting. Go ahead.
One day Caesar's daughter was passing by when the side of her carriage broke. Her attendants cut down a cedar tree that had been planted for one of the boys in the town.
But they didn't know. They needed a tree to fix the carriage. Go ahead.
Put it in the place of the broken panel. The Jews fell upon them and smote them. The Romans went and reported to Caesar. The Jews have rebelled against you. Caesar came upon the Jews of Beitar in battle.
Every story sounds the same. Basically, that's a story. The Gemara describes the destruction of Beitar. Want to continue? Martel?
The Gemara describes the destruction of Beitar. Scripture states, God, cut down in fierce anger all the dignity of Israel. Reb Zerah said in the name of Reb Abayu, who said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, This is a reference to the 80,000 division leaders who entered the city of Betar when it was captured. They slaughtered men, women, and children until their blood flowed and fell into the great sea, the Mediterranean.
It was a disaster, basically. That this is the three stories that happened, reckless behavior, and led to destruction. That's, by the way, it's a lesson for even today's day and age, to be very careful what you do. And okay, but you know,
But they were, I mean, but they were in occupied land to start with, right? I mean, they
they
were
were occupied by the Romans.
Romans,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And so you,
Yeah. Another incident that's involving Jewish youth, which, go ahead.
another incident involving Jewish youth which occurred during that period.
That's a separate story about the destruction of the temple, but not exactly connected, but a set story. I mean, kind of. Go ahead.
The rabbis taught in a Baraisa. There was an incident in which Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah.
Yeshua ben Hananiah was the disciple of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Not only this, he was the second in command to Rabbi Gamliel, was the Nasi, the leader, and Rabbi Yeshua was the second in command. If you remember the stories, they talk about the ones Rabbi Gamliel insulted them. Rabbi Yeshua in the story with Rabbi Lezer, they ostracized Rabbi Lezer from the yeshiva because there was an argument. That's Rabbi Lezer ben Nazariah with the white beard. But it's all the same group. They were the group in the same group where you read in the Agada about them. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah went where?
To the great city in Rome. They told him, there was one boy in prison with beautiful eyes and a fine appearance, and his locks are arranged in curls. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah went and stood by the entrance of the prison.
Okay, they saw a boy. It's not just they heard about this boy. First of all, everybody talked about this boy. He's so beautiful, he's so handsome. You know what the Romans did with the slaves? They sold them. For what? Because he was a beautiful boy. You can get a lot more money for him.
Okay. He recited this verse.
The Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah stood by the entrance of the prison or whatever it was. I read somewhere they were in cages, like for sale.
Who has given Jacob over for spoil and Israel to plunder?
He quoted a verse from the book of Isaiah. Who gave Jacob for spoil and Israel for plunders? He was like complaining to God or to the Jewish people, mourning, lamenting. That's the right word.
That boy answered and said, "Is it not Hashem? Is it this that brought upon us such a fate? We sinned against him, and our fathers did not want to go in his ways, and they did not listen to his Torah."
The boy completed the verse from the book of Isaiah. The continuation of the verse says, is that because we didn't observe Hashem's laws, the boy didn't complain to God, but he blamed himself. He says, we don't do what Hashem tells us, that's why we reached to such a level. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah was shocked that this boy, for two things, that this boy continued the verse from the book of Isaiah, by heart obviously. He wasn't in a yeshiva there with books. The rabbi started a verse and the guy finished it. That was almost a test to see what kind of a boy is. Everybody talks about him. Let's see what he is. And number two, that he had the insight to accept God's judgment and not to complain or be angry. Okay.
So the Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah said, I am certain that this boy will render legal decisions in Israel.
He says, I know that this man will be a great rabbi. And therefore,
I swear by the temple service that I am not budging from here until I have redeemed him for whatever price they demand for him.
He said, I'm redeeming this boy. He's coming back with me home. No matter how much money it's going to be.
It was said that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah did not budge from there until he'd redeemed the boy with a large sum of money, and it was not more than a short time before he became a Torah authority in Israel. And who was he? Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha.
Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha was a famous rabbi. There is two Yishmael ben Elisha. There was a Yishmael ben Elisha was a high priest in the temple, and they say maybe it was his descendants, his grandson or something like this. But he came and he saw this child, his unusual child. He redeemed them, and he brought them back, and he was one of the greatest scholars of the Jewish people. But that was the situation in the story. It's interesting to note, I read in a historic book, they say that the Jews who were captives and were taken to Rome, in Rome there was already a big Jewish community from before the destruction of the Second Temple. And the Roman Jews redeemed both the slaves and redeemed them, and they put them into, like in one community is helping the other community, they helped them to establish themselves. There were time in Rome, they were complete streets that were closed on Shabbat, stores, because they were all Jewish merchants. Rome was invaded by Jews at certain time in the city of Rome. And then this is an example how he redeemed this boy. He raised a lot of money from the Jews in Rome, and he redeemed them. The Gemara relates another tragedy. It disappeared in the right time. Continue.
The Gemara relates another tragedy which occurred during that era. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, there was an incident in which the son and daughter of Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha were captured and sold to two masters.
Okay, this is another Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, because this is talking about they were the sons of a Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha. The son and the daughter were captured during the war, the destruction of the temple, and were sold. If you want to start to read from them. Okay.
Sometime later.
Up here?
Yes.
Sometime later, the two masters chanced upon each other in a certain place. This one says, I have a slave whose beauty is without equal in the entire world. And the other one says, I have a slave woman whose beauty is without equal in the entire world. They said, come, let us wed them, and we will divide the offspring. They brought the son and daughter of Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha into a room. He said,
okay, they decided, he says, I have a beautiful servant. Amazing. He says, we can sell the kids, it's worth it a lot of money. They brought them into the same room. Yeah, she was sitting in one corner. Go ahead.
He sat in one corner, and she sat in the other corner. He said, I am a Kohen, the son of a Kohanim Gedolim. How can I marry a slave woman?
A Kohen cannot marry a slave woman. And she said,
I am a Koheness, the daughter of a Kohen Gedolim. How can I marry a slave?
How can a daughter of a Kohen cannot marry a slave? Then both of them were sitting in two corners and crying, look what is happening to us. Go ahead.
They wept the entire night. When dawn broke, they recognized each other. They fell upon each other and wept bitterly until their souls departed. In reference to them, Jeremiah prophetically laments, over these people I weep. My eye runs with water.
Basically, this is one of the lamentations that we say on Tisha B'Av in the morning. This story is one of them from the Talmud. But it's all started really because there was no unity among the Jewish people. We'll stop right here.